Happy Friday, Mavericks. We have a great guest today. David Fresquez from CareSource is going to talk about in-home care. And before we do that, I kind of want to touch real quickly on, I hope everyone's doing well. As you can tell, my hair isn't. I need a haircut. It's been a little too long here since I've been out of, in a public space. So hopefully I can get a haircut soon. But I also want to take a moment and just thank our sponsors. We've got some really great sponsors that have been that do a lot of great things for older adults. Assured Partners, fantastic when it comes to insurance and representing those providers that are taking care of our older adults. Heartland Pharmacy is a wonderful long-term care pharmacy that makes sure our residents are getting their medications, doing those med checks to make sure we don't have any issues going on. Fading Memories, which is a wonderful podcast about Alzheimer's. It is a firsthand account of a daughter talking about the challenges with her mother. And then Routinify. It is a mobile tech platform that is enabling oversight and care within the homes through tablets, through technologies. Make sure that you check those out. And as always, we want to give a big thank you to our provider and our powering the show today, Serenity Engage, which is doing amazing things for our residents and their families through a HIPAA-compliant app. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Wells, our Chief Inspiration Maverick, who's going to start diving in a little more with David and the great story that he has of how he came to be a leader in in-home care. And as always, Catherine, it's your show.
It's my show. Thanks, Francis. And it's good to see you, Francis, because we haven't actually seen each other in a little while. And I was lucky enough, since I am remote most of the time, I'm not going into long-term care facilities. I went and got my hair done, and believe me, I felt like a new woman. So today we have a guest with us, David Fresquez from CareSource, and he is the founder of CareSource. So David, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and David reached out to us, I think, after seeing one of our shows and shared a little bit about his story. And I was just so impressed with that conversation, David. And I'm really excited to share your story and what you're doing there. Yeah. So first of all, tell our audience where you're coming from. What state are you in?
Yep, so I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
All right. And how are things down there right now?
They're great. I mean, everything just opened up a little bit more. Gyms, restaurants. So yeah, it's not busy. Yeah, gyms. Yeah, it's not business as usual, but it's getting to be a little bit more normal. You see more people, driving around, interacting. So.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. A little more life. And I think we're all hungry for a little more life, especially in senior care. So why don't you give our audience a little bit of your background?
Yeah. So long story short, I was in grad school at Colorado State University, Pueblo, and going for my MBA. And just like every college student, just broke, living day by day, and needed a place to work. So I literally walked across the street from where I was living in an apartment complex and walked into a skilled nursing facility, a nursing home. And I had never been into a nursing home. I had no idea, no interaction, nothing. I just walked in and said, "Hey, I'll do whatever it takes," and just had no clue, nothing. So by the graces of God, I did get a job there. And my primary position was helping the residents do the bathing, the grooming, mobility assistance, and getting them, from waking them up in the morning to getting them to breakfast, to lunch, to dinner. And as a 22-year-old, that was a major, huge experience for me because I didn't know necessarily about the elderly. I didn't know about, life or death. And I just had no idea. I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I was in the interview, I literally asked the people, I said, "Do people die here?" And they looked at me like, this kid is like, he has no clue what he's getting himself into, right? But I fell in love with it. And fast forward 4 to 5 years working in facilities, I did assisted, independent, and skilled nursing facilities. One thing that I noticed that residents had in common were they missed home and they missed family. So I said, that's the ticket. I can really get behind that. So I came back home to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and did exactly that. So we provide in-home support for the elderly, and we focus on activities of daily living. So bathing, grooming, mobility assistance, medication reminders, transportation, everything you need to stay at home. So we've been in business for 6 years, and I've literally worked every single day, 24/7 for the last 6 years. Obviously for a couple of reasons. One, it's entrepreneurship. So you're always kind of thinking about your staff, your clients, the industry. And then also what's unique to senior care is just because the Broncos are playing on Sunday, just because it's a Friday night, our seniors, our elderly are doing their thing. So we've got to make sure that we're responsible, our staff's getting to where we need to go, and it's a 24/7 thing. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So,
and I think you recently passed a milestone in revenue, correct?
Correct. So this, our estimated number right now is we'll definitely hit over $1 million in sales. And I don't know like the industry average, but for me, I feel good about it. Also, we're paying our caregivers obviously above minimum wage and above what other competitive agencies are paying their caregivers, which I'm very, very proud of. So our margins are smaller, but that's what makes the world go around, because, if it wasn't for our caregivers, we wouldn't have the company that we've built.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, and very important. And hi, Josh. Thanks for watching. You're one of our regulars. We so appreciate you. So Josh is watching from Seattle, David.
Cool. Great.
So I want to circle back on a few of the things that you said. When you and I spoke on the phone and you covered it in your story, one of the things that really grabbed me was you said, I walked across the street to a long-term care community and said, how can I help? And I was 22 years old and knew nothing about it. That to me is just the heart of your story, because it shows entrepreneurship. Yes, you wanted to build a company, but you wanted to work. You wanted to give back. You wanted to see what this industry was all about. So you said you were a graduate student. Did you say you were getting your MBA?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So entrepreneurship, it has always been part of you, right? You've always wanted to start your own business. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you learned being a hands-on caregiver?
So definitely, a couple of things that come to mind is just patience, right? Got to be very patient with our people. And because most of our guys, they're at the end of their life. So you've got to be very patient, very cordial. You've got to make sure that your energy is right when you walk into a room. You've got to leave everything, your outside world out the door and come into a setting where it's compassion, it's loving, it's caring. People ask me, they say, well, what are the credentials for this? Do I need to be a certified nursing assistant, CNA? What do I need to do? And I say, as long as you have love and patience, we can teach the rest. So those are the main, primary focus things, because obviously we're working with humans, and we're working with humans when they're in a very vulnerable state, and when they're usually 100% dependent upon us arriving on time and doing what we need to do throughout that visit so that they pass away with peace. And that's very, very important stuff.
And I would add to that, so that they live with peace. Because,
correct.
Yeah, absolutely. You're aiding them to live
through
this chapter in their life. And I think that's beautiful. And I know we have some new caregivers some people who are new to the caregiving industry that watch our show. So I really hope that they take that, and the idea that it's about having the love, and there was something else you said.
Is love, patience, and caring.
Patience. So being able to leave your problems and anything that's bugging you outside the door each and every time you walk in somebody's door, that's hard to do. How do you train your staff to do that?
So what I do is it's not so much a training thing, but I like to hire people who are experienced in that field already. So, I'm hiring from people who want to transition, kind of like I did, from a nursing home setting or an assisted living setting where you're working with 20 to 25 people into more of an intimate setting of working with a one-on-one. So that's kind of how I do the training process,
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
so we should make that clear to our audience that there's the settings where it's like apartment-like or a skilled nursing community, and then there's home care. And
Right.
what David's business CareSource is a home care business. So we should talk about, what does home care mean? There is home care and there's home health. So can you describe the differences?
Yeah, exactly. So typically, and I'll just give you a scenario. So let's say my grandmother fell, she broke an arm, she's off to the hospital, right? Then the discharge planners are usually going to send her home with a home health agency. So those are nurses, skilled therapists like PT, occupational therapy. That's considered home health. That's usually covered through Medicare and Medicaid. And if she needs additional support, the discharge manager or the family will then contact a company like ours, which is non-medical in-home support for the elderly, which is private caregivers, to then go into the home to support the additional hours that aren't already supported through home health.
Right. So home care can be done in the home, and it can also be done at communities. It's wherever home is, right?
Exactly. And it's a little confusing with the language, but I hope that's a good description.
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great description. I think that's really key, is the difference. How long are the shifts typically? Do you do 4 hours to 24/7? What type of shifts are your staff taking on?
So it varies. It varies off need mainly, right? One thing that's unique to us is that across the board through the industry, they have minimums. So the bigger franchises, they'll say, okay, well, usually what we do business is 4 to 5 hours, 4 to 5 times a week. Okay. Some people are sometimes turned off by that because they may not need that. We're a little bit more flexible because we have that entrepreneurial spirit to say, okay, well, if your loved one needs 2 hours, we can accommodate. Because what I've seen, and that's kind of how I got started with it, is I got a lot of just 2 hours, 1 hour persons there. But it was inevitable that they fell in love with our caregiver. So they had an instant companion, an instant friend, and the family can rely on that caregiver to be there. And then it's inevitable that they needed more hours as they aged and as they got through the process. So we don't necessarily do those minimums. But to answer your question, we have people who are doing an hour and a half to 24 hours support.
Oh, okay.
It's based off need and just the time. Because again, if you're being discharged from a broken hip, maybe for a couple of weeks, you need 24/7 care. You rehab, now you're scaling back to 8 hours a day. Mm-hmm. It's very much variable based. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's the great part is you're enabling people to be at home, which I think all of us want that. And it sounds like you're helping them do that when at times they might be, thinking, oh, my only option is a nursing home or something else. So that's a fantastic gift. So that leads me to kind of this question is, what are the benefits of in-home care besides obviously being in your home? And it sounds like you're getting more personalized care as well too.
Yeah, agreed. So I think just again, off the cuff is like with assisted living, memory care, it's scheduled 8:30, 11:30, 4:30, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That doesn't fit for everybody, especially with people who have, some mild degree of memory loss. So we're customizing each of our plans to meet the needs of that individual at that time. When they're in assisted living, they can progress to different moods, to different lifestyles, and the assisted living is still going to accommodate them when they met them 6 months or a year down the road. When we're in their home, my caregivers are going to say, "Hey, Dave, our client or our client is needing additional care, right? Or they need less care, or they need this type of medication, or they need this type of food, or they need this type of exercise now." So that's the benefit, is just a customized game plan as you age.
I think you have a real competitive advantage with your ability to do a few hours or to customize the game plan the way that you have described it here. And it's for families who are listening, I really like the idea that you are able to do that and meet the needs of the individual rather than meet the needs of your business requirements, which might say it has to be a minimum of 4 hours. We started that way with my parents when they were aging at home, and we brought a home care agency in, and it was a minimum of 4 hours. And I want to ask you this question. What do you do if somebody doesn't click with the older adult?
Yeah, so like a caregiver match, you mean? Yeah, so we just get a new one.
And so how do you get the feedback from?
You ask them.
So you actively
ask my caregiver and ask my client, the client's family. And if the cosmos aren't in the air that it's a good fit, we just send another person.
Okay.
It's really that simple.
It kind of sounds like, too, one of your big advantages is your communication. It sounds like you are communicating a lot with the patient, the client, the family, your staff. I mean, that's what Catherine's big thing is. She's a big believer in communication, and I am too. And I think sometimes in this industry it's lacking. So can you talk a little bit more about how you communicate with your staff, your families, your clients?
Yeah. So like this thing doesn't stop. Like, I've already got a text and a missed call. It does not stop. So, it's just building those relationships with our people. It's calling, it's texting anytime during the night. I have myself and my care coordinator, Delana. She's on top of it 24/7. We've built a strategy where, we have Delana Monday through Friday overseeing the staff. We have our weekend person in Ken. So you've basically got 2 people our families can call, or 3 our families can call at any given time, which is our caregiver, which is our care coordinator, which is the owner. And again, we just do this 24/7. It doesn't stop. So, one thing that we're looking on the business side is seeing how we can obviously scale the business. But again, I'm very cautious of that because it can't get too big too fast. So for the people who are listening who want to get into this field and have that entrepreneurial spirit, one rule of thumb that I've used is I've done, and this is kind of a secret, is I've done no marketing costs the whole 6 years. All it is word of mouth, me going into these facilities, talking to these discharge planners, and having these types of conversations. All it is a business card and a small thing of our services. So 0 marketing and $1 million in sales. I mean, no other business can really do that unless you're very dedicated and you're communicating with your people day in and day out. So that's what it is.
It's well said. I mean, and I think what it sounds like is you're building trust. So your marketing, yes, you're not spending your marketing dollars on, you're spending it on trust, building the relationship, building the trust.
That's right.
Yeah, so important. So let's shift over to COVID. How have you responded to COVID?
Yeah, so, we've done the obvious things of, making sure that our caregivers are, washing their hands before, during, and after their services, right? And we are technically emergency, workers. So we need to continue with what we do every single day. And, we're wearing masks. That's a requirement now, is that all of our staff is wearing masks. And I think COVID right now is still a little new, right? It's still just a few months in. So we're still kind of learning as we go, as we all do. However, I've seen that people are less prone to go into assisted living facilities now, and they just want to stay home longer. So perhaps in the future, we'll see that as a benefit, that people just that's more of a strategy to stay home and stay away from more of a facility type environment.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of that, and it will be interesting. Nobody knows how it will play out. There have been some trends of people who are leaving some of the bigger communities and their kids trying to bring them back home. Who knows if that will last? It's all speculation. But I think the bottom line is that we all realize that there comes a time when we may need some very specific care, and that there are options like this that are open and available. So I just have to commend you. You're a younger person, younger than me, so I can say that. who is in an industry serving older adults. And Francis and I love to see that because it's the fresh thinking and the fresh minds and the new ideas. And
Right.
you really are. We like to bring innovators and mavericks on the show. And you really are. You exhibit both of those because you just said, I want to start a business. I'm going to go learn about this industry. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to create something unique and special to me. And in that, creating something unique and special to your clients. So that's obviously the ultimate goal, right? So we'll wrap up here with our final question that we always ask people. Standing 1 year from today, what do you hope we've learned from all of this and bring forward with us?
Yeah, so I think one really novel idea that this is going to be basically our next phase of potential business is what's called an age-friendly community model. So what this means is that, it's basically helping people of all ages stay in communities and neighborhoods that they love. That's essentially it. And I think this model is trending. AARP has good models on age friendliness. And I think that with COVID, right, people are saying, okay, now we can do Zoom calls. Now we can work from home, these types of things. So why can't we do in-home care support for our loved one? So I think from a year from now, these models that, weren't so, definite maybe 30, 40 years ago with home care, because the nursing home model took force, maybe in 2021, everybody's like, okay, yeah, like this makes a lot of sense, having people stay at home in their neighborhoods, in the communities that they love. So I think that's what I hope we learn from a year from now.
That's great. We've talked about that as well. It's really wonderful. Good. Well, David, so if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and learn more about your business, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so the caresource.life website, it has all our credentials there, and it has our office phone number. You'll connect to me or my office manager, Delana. We'll exchange numbers, and then we're off to the races. Just call or text anytime, email, we're on it.
Well, we love what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate talking to you. And anyone out there in our audience, if you have questions, please reach out to David. It's a great thing, great service he's offering.
Yes, thanks, David, for all you do, and especially the fresh, creative perspective you're taking. I think we're at a very positive tipping point is what I look at for our older adults right now. And now is the time to begin to reshape, reform an aging discussion about how we want to age. So I applaud what you're doing.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.